All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're going to fundamentally change the way you look at your calendar. Most of us just think of it as this passive grid of dates and appointments, right? Just a neutral tool we use to keep our lives organized. But what if it's not neutral at all? What if instead it's actually an active, behavioral operating system that dictates exactly how you spend your energy, your focus, and your life force? Well, today we are going to unpack exactly how to overwrite that deeply ingrained system. We have to start by challenging a really deeply held assumption. I want you to ask yourself honestly, is your calendar just helping you schedule your week, or is it actually an extraction engine? As we dig into the source material for this explainer, we're going to realize that our modern schedules are basically running this hidden default script. And it's a script that constantly drains our energy, completely disguised as tradition and holiday obligation. Now, this is wild. Look closely at this chart mapping our nervous system arousal across the year. Notice how the massive dysregulation spikes, those sheer red peaks where our nervous system goes into complete overdrive, align absolutely perfectly with major American holidays. You've got Memorial Day, the 4th of July, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, and then that massive spike at Christmas and New Year's. Our biology is quite literally being hijacked by the calendar. What's happening here is what the source material calls conquest rhythms. This operating system essentially masks extraction as just, standard holiday pressure. We run around buying things, traveling, stressing out, consuming, and because everybody else is absolutely exhausted doing the exact same thing, we just think it's the way life is. But as this quote so perfectly reminds us, the pressure feels normal, but normal is definitely not natural. It is a totally artificial rhythm being imposed on our biology. To fix this, to stop the biological hijacking, we need a massive paradigm shift. We have to transition away from this culture of distortion and domination and move into a completely new paradigm called reverent strength. We're talking about moving from possession to protection, which means having strength without needing to dominate. We're moving from violence to fire, having clear direction without coercion. And we're shifting from collapse to descent, maintaining presence without caving under the crushing pressure. And here is our map out of the trap. It's called the 5-gate code. Rather than looking at the year as this endless series of exhausting sprints from one holiday to the next, we get to reimagine it as an initiatory blueprint. Each major holiday becomes a mythic gate where a specific cultural script tries to hijack us. But at each gate, we can consciously choose to apply a sovereign bypass. Let's break down each of these 5 gates. Okay, Gate 1. This hits right around Memorial Day, symbolized by the elusive, mythological Cyrenian hind. The cultural system alert screams at us to sprint. It tells us to launch into summer mode with forced adrenaline and intense travel pressure. But the sovereign bypass, our override, tells us to attune. We have to stop the chase and restore our own biological pacing before the season literally takes our body hostage. So the diagnostic question you need to ask yourself, especially every May, is simply, am I chasing? By just pausing to ask this, you interrupt that default script. You can consciously choose to stop the chase and let pleasure become regulated and restorative rather than extractive. Let the sacred animal move at its own rhythm instead of forcing it. Then we roll into July for Gate 2, the Cretan Bull. Right around Independence Day, the calendar flashes a system alert telling us to explode. It demands fire leakage through noise, overstimulation, and literal spectacle, which we often mistake for actual freedom. But the medicine here, the required override, is to contain. You have to become a vessel strong enough to carry your potency without burning the field down or leaking it all out into sheer noise. To actually activate that containment, use this question, am I leaking power? Because true power absolutely does not need to constantly discharge to prove it exists. Use this question to check in with yourself. Are you embodying actual grounded sovereignty, or are you just burning the field around you in a performative display of energy? Next up, late summer, Labor Day hits. We arrive at Gate 3, the Belt of Hippolyta. Here, the default system traps us in the grind of the industrial machine. It measures our human worth entirely through our output and demands we submit to this master and servant script. The necessary override? Reclaim. We must meet work sovereignly. We've got to look in the clean mirror and meet authority eye to eye without projection or servitude. And man, this brings us to a deeply profound diagnostic question. Where has my body confused exhaustion with worth? That is a really powerful mirror to hold up. It forces us to evaluate if we are mindlessly submitting to that industrial script. Listen, your exhaustion is not a badge of honor, and recognizing that is the very first step to reclaiming your sovereign energy. All right, moving into the fall harvest, from Halloween to Thanksgiving, we face gate 4, the apples of the Hesperides. The cultural system intensely pushes us to mindlessly consume. It treats this threshold as a resource for travel chaos, sugar crashes, and family performance without any real repair. Our override is to choose to steward. We must steward the garden and focus on feeding what actually feeds us. Your grounding question right here is, am I extracting? We have to practice a gratitude that actually has teeth, roots, repair, and responsibility. We have to ensure we're not calling a feast sacred if nothing is being actively restored to the land, to our bodies, or to our ancestors. True stewardship means leaving the garden healthier than you found it. Finally, at gate 5, triggering from Christmas right into the new year, we meet Cerberus. The system screams at us to numb out the dark with artificial lights, toxic positivity, forced shopping, and debt. It wants us to perform brightness to completely avoid the winter dark. But our required override is to retrieve. We must consciously use the winter basin as a retrieval chamber for lost parts of the soul. The crucial question, am I bypassing the dark? You have to use the natural, quiet descent of the winter basin to let the year die. Let grief move through you if it needs to. Allow the profound silence of winter to reveal what all that previous calendar noise was actually protecting you from. We have to pass through the dark honestly, not artificially light it up. When you string all of this together, it builds a completely new architecture for how we operate, called the Monad-Dragon Alliance. We are no longer playing out that old script of the distorted hero who treats the garden as a resource to be extracted and sees the dragon as an enemy to defeat. Instead, we become the steward, allying with the guardian intelligence to actually protect the sacred life force. So how do we actually pull this off day to day? Look, a dysregulated nervous system does not need a dissertation. It needs orientation. Here is your daily octave implementation in 4 simple steps. First, identify the signal of internal dysregulation. Second, name the script trying to hijack you. Is it sprint, explode, grind, consume, or numb? Third, apply the sovereign bypass. Attune, contain, reclaim, steward, or retrieve. And fourth, take reverent action. You physically and emotionally override that default script in that exact moment. I want to leave you with this really incredible quote from the source material to reflect on. The sacred does not open through force. It opens when the field becomes safe enough for life to remain. You have the tools now to break the spell of the conquest for them, but the choice is ultimately yours. This year, are you going to let the calendar extract your energy, or will you reclaim your gates and make your field safe for your own life force to thrive?